What common thing screams I make poor financial choices? I dated a guy who always impulsively spent his paycheck. If rent came a day or two after payday, it got paid. If it came a day or two before payday, it didn't. It didn't occur to him that he had to budget his check to meet expenses. His mom had always covered everything that he didn't pay, so he never had to think about what his check needed to cover. After a while, his car didn't run and he couldn't fix it, and he had to move out of his apartment because he didn't pay rent. Rolling car payments into your next car. I can't count how many people I know who traded in perfectly functioning cars they still owed money on because they needed something newer or outgrew their current car. I know someone who was paying $900 per month for a Hyundai Tucson that was listed for like $25,000. It ended up getting repoed. It's called rolling negative equity, and it's a bad idea, indeed. I did this once. When I was several years younger, I bought a brand new 2014 Jetta Sport Wagon TDI. 9 months later, I was at the VW dealership, and the new version, this time called the Golf Sport Wagon, was out. I asked if they had one, and they did. And I bought it on the spot, a fully loaded TDI cell. Since it was so new, I paid MSRP, plus the taxes got rolled in. They gave me $21,000 for my Jetta Sport Wagon that I owed $27,000 on, which meant that I financed in $6,000 of negative equity. And that is how, even with a decent interest rate, I ended up with a $715 car payment on a fucking Volkswagen. I made out lucky because VW bought back the Golf Sport Wagon during the diesel scandal, and VW Financial canceled the remainder of the loan balance, but I will never ever do that again. I am a real estate agent and I work leads with my lender. We met this lady about 4 months ago who had bad credit and low income. We helped her identify what she needed to do to get better credit, and she said she may get more money soon. We follow up last week. She got a new higher paying job, but when he ran her credit, he saw she just purchased a $64,000 car. He told her things look better income wise, but the car payments take up pretty much all of your debt to income ratio. She said, I just can't win. I gotta get to work somehow. With that kind of car, I bet she gets to work real fast. My lender said the only house she will get approved for now is a gingerbread house. Some people just have no idea how to live within their means. I work in lending, and every single day I see clients who make a salary that exceeds 6 figures and they are tapping their home equity brokerage to consolidate 6 figures worth of credit card debt. I had a client last week that had over 20 credit cards they needed to pay off. Their minimum payments on the cards exceeded $3K/mo, just bonkers. When I was much younger, I managed to rack up just over 5 digits in credit card debt. This was back when you never had to pay interest because every offer you got came with 12 to 24 months of interest-free balance transfers. Lol banks. I moved back in with my folks and spent literally all my paltry income getting that paid off as quickly as possible. I can't imagine having credit card debt approaching 6 figures and not just completely losing my mind. That's like almost or over $1,000 in interest accrued per month at a rate that's much lower than I'm sure most people in that situation get. I wish I could see all the bank statements. One time I had this client that couldn't pay her own closing costs, and it was killing her in multiple offers. I couldn't figure out why they couldn't save money, and my lender said if they could just refrain from going to Domino's for a couple months they could do it. My husband is an in-house lawyer for an insurance company. One of his clients is the head of HR. She's been complaining about an employee in the finance department who's constantly borrowing from his 401k. Just when he pays it off, he borrows again. When the company asked employees for suggestions to improve morale, his submission was that the company ought to allow employees to take out 401k loans against the employer contribution, matching, too. He was mad that he could only borrow his own contribution. This guy makes 6 figures. I don't know what's going on in his personal life, but damn. It won't be a surprise, but apparently a lot of the executives borrow from their 401ks and empty their HSAs the day the company deposits the money. People just grow up spending what's in their bank account. When you don't have much or it's required to live check to check, it kinda works okish cause you can't get in too much trouble. Then, they get good jobs and access to credit. Still spend everything in the account, that's how life's always been, right? Oh, but Visa is kinda like an extension of my bank account. I'll just put this Wi-Fi Vader Jesus toaster on there. Not a big deal, they only want a small amount back each month. Repeat 100x. Oh no. What have I done? It amazes me how many high-paid people I've met that lie this way. They don't put a lot, if anything, away for the future, but they get big paychecks every few weeks, plus bonuses, so they can just barely manage to keep their excessive spending habits going. Bonus goes to credit card debt. Cycle repeats. If they lose their jobs, they are boned, but as long as they maintain employment, they are surviving. I don't know what they're going to do when they retire if they're borrowing from their homes, 401ks, etc. Exactly, as long as nothing goes wrong, all is good. Keep the treadmill going. Non-American here with a few cues. Can anyone just borrow from their 401k? In my country you can only access your retirement accounts before the access age if you're terminally ill or facing severe financial hardship, and not owning a Wi-Fi Vader Jesus toaster would not count. Is there a tax penalty for doing so, other than missing those sweet tax-sheltered gains? Is there an enforced repayment schedule, and do you have to pay yourself any interest? I believe up to $50,000, and you have to pay it back with interest, which goes into your account. If you lose your job you might have to pay back the balance, sooner rather than later. If you don't pay back the loan you have to pay income taxes plus a 10% penalty for withdrawing early. I only know because I was going to use this as part of our down payment for a new house before selling my current house. I think there's some practical applications, but odds are you get better returns leaving the funds invested. It's not a cop-out, it's just an explanation on how many people end up that way. I grew up poor too and put a ton in savings. I'm glad you also learned proper financial literacy, but it's plenty common people don't. I'm with you. I have a decent paying job, and I'm saving money away so I'm prepared for when someone realizes I'm not supposed to be here. I feel like if I can get my house paid down, some money in retirement and investments, even if I found myself in a minimum wage job I'd be okay. Max out one so you get another. I guess, but shouldn't they stop being approved after you're saddled with 5 to 8 maxed out cards making minimum monthly payments on them? Seems like a pretty gigantic flaw in the system if not. I guess there will always be someone willing to give you a line of credit with some ridiculously high interest rate attached. Cause if you know they aren't going to pay it back you are going to make a booty ton on interest long term. They hand out cards like candy these days. I feel this. In my area every few years there will be an article or news spot along the lines of even families with an income of $400,000 are struggling. I live in the SF Bay Area and yeah, it's expensive. I make $100K and can't afford to buy a house. But 2 adults and 2 kids should not be struggling on $400K. Usually if you read it, it's the family that drives 2 Mercedes and wants to put their 4 kids through private school and save up for all 4 to go to Stanford. Like okay, you're trying to live like rich people and because you can't you're crying about it. I can even make a $600 credit limit work well. I think I mostly live within my means. My car is paid off, the wife's car is paid off. It's just the house that kills us. Not because we can't afford it silly enough. It was the most move-in ready house we could afford. We just didn't know it would flood with sewage water. I recently moved out. My old roommate, who was already financially unstable, is staying in the house. Which means his rent went from $530 to $1,060. 2 weeks before I moved out, he decided to upgrade his car. I told him to shop around, look at different APR rates etc. He came home with a car worth $23K at the max, bought it for $28K with a 6-year loan with 10% interest. 6 years from now, he will pay $38K for a 2015 Scion SRF. Cheers. 5 years or less is standard, anything over that is a salesman trying to sell you more car than you can afford. The interest rates go up with longer terms and you spend much more of the loan underwater. If you're on a budget, go for a budget car and get a loan of 3 years or less. You'll pay way less interest, and if you have to replace the car you're much more likely to have some value above your remaining loan. An inspected, certified used car, or even a very basic new car is doable on most budgets if you shop around. Save the 5-year loans for when you're buying a $60K plus car and you qualify for ultra low rates. I'm paying 0.49% on a sweet Audi, but that's after decades driving cheap crap. Does this change at all if you can drastically refinance early enough? Say like 10% plus within a short amount of time of the loan opening. That's a don't count your chickens issue to me. You take a very bad loan planning to refee for better terms later. That could work, or things could change and keep you stuck in your shit loan. You're predicting the future, your own financial future, and the availability, cost of credit. If you're able to refinance soon, why not wait until then to make the purchase? If the purchase is urgent and all you qualify for are crap loan terms, then buy the cheapest thing you can find that will get you by. I wasn't really asking for personal financial advice, I was just curious because I don't have specific numbers, the capacity to math that well. It's 3 a.m. and you seemed like someone that might know it off the top of your head. Emo, the most ideal situation for buying a car is paying cash for a used car. This is 1 or 2 years old, with low KMs that come standard with 7 years, unlimited KM manufacturer's warranty. I like used Toyotas, 3 to 5 years old. Drive them until I have a need for a different type of vehicle. I'm not fussed with the warranty. Haven't had anything major break yet. As a Dutchman, the amount of people on Reddit with car loans always boggles my mind. Taking a loan by choice against a thing that only becomes worth less doesn't look like the best financial decision to make. As with all things, folks have to assess if the situation works for them. I've gotten several cars, $14-17K. I didn't have the cash for that, but my interest rate was 2%. Buying brand new depreciates more rapidly versus a new or used car, e.g. both my cars were 1 to 2 years old at the time with minimal miles. They've retained decent value. Seen a few people buy nearly all infant/baby/toddler cloths new from expensive brands. The most insane, a $350 Canada Goose winter jacket for a 4-month-old. Jacket barely covered the winter and then was too small. Oh, and nearly everyone I know that does this needs their parents' help each and every month to cover rent or mortgage payments.